covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Kyleman and Jim Mernier.
Today on the Inside the Walls podcast, man, we have the pleasure of being joined by arguably our most prolific guest yet on this show. It is the National Arena League Commissioner himself, Chris Siegfried, joining us for this edition of Inside the Walls, basically the kickoff to the season edition for 2022. Commissioner, how you doing? Things I assume are a little hectic going into kicking off what is now a full out of shortened year type of season for 2022.
Man, guys, I am so excited, not only for you guys, joining us as the official podcast of the NAL, but bringing back Ironman football for 2022 and beyond. I am so excited about this season. It's beyond words. I mean, coached the game for a long time, and when the powers that be took away Ironman football, it took a piece of the history of the game. So I can't tell you how excited I am for 2022. It was uncomfortable for a lot of people in our league and outside the league that didn't understand it when it all went down, but I've been pushing for this from day one. So I'm super excited.
Chris, I think this is just might as well jump right into it. The big thing in the room for 2022, obviously. So kind of stroll back a few months here, go back all the way to October. The scene's set. Ironman is announced back in the league officially via the National Arena League. And, people had some words. We've had our opinions change about it since. And this is kind of the show when we were setting this up with you. I myself want to get more on Ironman. This is, for me, this is very much a curious season because I'm used to what I know from Arena, which is more just everyone specialize their position. This year, we got 2 per side, a bunch of people swapping around, and you're the perfect guy just from your past being in the game to kind of give us the rundown. So if you like to, this is your chance to tell us all here about the Ironman game.
Yeah, let's do it. So let me preface it by this, right? So in the past few years, since we started in late 2016, really our first season was 2017, but everything got consummated in 2016. But since we started this, we've had various people in other leagues wanting to join, combine forces and all this other stuff. And they're talking about this way of playing, that way of playing. So when I look at the game in general, I look at being more unique, more different. I feel like fans, we've got college football, which to me is the best, right? I love college football. And the NFL, I don't love like an NFL team, but I love players. I love the stories of the NFL. They're the greatest athletes in the world, in my opinion, right? Sure. So the spring leagues, the outdoor game, the spring leagues never seem to work because for various reasons, the NFL doesn't need them. They've got college football. They don't need a spring league. And it's very hard to compete with the NFL. It's a juggernaut of a business, right?
Oh, yeah.
But what always seems to work in the off season of different leagues is a different version of the game, right? So we don't want to play the same game indoors. Like, we want to be more unique. So Ironman gives us the opportunity to be totally unique, right? Guys in the NFL, great, best players in the world, right? Best athletes in the world. But some of them are so specialized. Let's say a left tackle. He can't necessarily turn around and play defensive end. The guys in our league have to be versatile, have to be great athletes. And it is different. It is unique. We're not trying to compete with the NFL, but we are, in my opinion, the best version of indoor/arena football in the world. Our game is different and unique. You can't just plug and play a zone read type quarterback in our game. You have to be able to throw the ball. So the other styles that the other leagues play, I don't have any issues with them other than the fact that we want to be more different.
Sure.
Guys always say, well, the X's and O's. And I'm like, and they try to tell me, because I'm a former coach, the X's and O's, you get to do so much in this league. I mean, that's great. All I care about is the fans and the entertainment value. So that's one thing to talk about Ironman football. But let's dive into the way the game is played, because I've had a lot of NAL players reach out to me individually, whether it's been through texting or Facebook Messenger or whatever. And they're like, well, I'm going to play twice as many of the plays because you got to be playing offense, defense, whatever. I'm like, and I tell them, you're not playing twice as many plays. It's about Ironman is a term that developed because guys are playing both offense and defense. They're not playing the whole game. Offensive players are going to play, probably 70% offense, 30% defense, and defensive players are going to play 70-30 defense offense.
Sure.
It has to do with the substitutions. So here's the simplest way to explain substitutions for Ironman football. If you have two specialists, right?
Okay.
A quarterback and a receiver is traditionally, you have two offensive specialists, two defense specialists. The other 6 players play both offense and defense and special teams. If you start the quarter, you can come out and come back in. If you don't start the quarter, once you come out, you're dead for the quarter.
Okay.
So the term Ironman just is developed because you got to play offense and defense, and Ironman is an endearing term for us. But the reality of it is about substitutions. So I tell coaches all the time when they call me, it's like, hey, when they're talking about, well, how would you do this? How would you do that? I'm like, you want to, it's like a pitch count. You want to monitor your players' pitch count, because in the fourth quarter, when you need your studs, you need to keep them fresh, right? You don't want to wear them out in the first 3 quarters.
Exactly.
For the fourth quarter. So our game becomes less about X's and O's and more about managing the clock, managing your players, managing your roster. And then if you get an injury, you've got to work your way around that. So it's a different way of playing the game. It's a game that I grew up on. I was a rookie in 1992 with the Orlando Predators. Granted, I rode the bench the whole year because I had a bunch of studs in front of me, but my pastor is a guy by the name of Herky Walls, who is an arena football legend here in Orlando. Mm-hmm. I met with him yesterday, and he's so excited about the game because Ironman came back, and all these legends of the games, Hunky Cooper, Barry Wagner, all these guys that we grew up watching are legends, not because they were one-sided players, although there's some great one-sided players, Jay Gruden, to name one of the quarterbacks. But the fans fell in love with these guys that were able to play offense, defense, special teams. They were able to do everything. Barry Wagner got a chance with the Chicago Bears because of his versatility, on special teams and defense. He was a receiver. So you have all these storylines with guys being able to play multiple positions. And I know I'm kind of going off the beaten path here, but I just love the way the game's played. And now I'll say we have a current player in our league who plays for Albany. He happens to be a very, very, an incredibly talented receiver. Got a cup of coffee in the NFL. His name is very. He's got a great name. I'll just tell you, it's Darius Prince.
Oh yeah. I was about to say, gee, I wonder who it could be.
Now Darius reached out to me and was like, man, I got to play double the plays, this, that, and the other thing. And, he's talking about, we need more money, blah, blah, blah. And I always tell players, there's not enough money that we could pay you. The owners, there's not enough money that we could pay you to be worth your time, because these players are unbelievably talented players. And I'm giving Darius Prince as an example. This kid he's an incredible talent. He's made some catches, like even in the championship game last year, he made a couple catches that I was just like, man, this kid is unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
And, so he's primed for being like your offensive specialist type of receiver. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say, once he starts playing the game, he's going to be begging his coaches to play some defense at some point in time. Now, whether or not the coaches let him do that or not, I don't know, because Darius Prince is just an incredible athlete. He's one of many. He's not the only one out there. I'm using him as an example just because Albany won the championship last year. He's I don't know if there's any receivers better than him right now. He's very, very good. And I'm not trying to disrespect any other receivers because there's a lot of great ones out there, but he is a marquee receiver, right? Mm-hmm. And I just think he is a guy that once he plays the game, a few games, he's going to fall in love with it. And if not, I'll have egg on my face for sure.
I'll tell you what, you're going to get a good kick out of this from our last show when we had Lonnie Outlaw from the Predators on. And one of the things he mentioned with Iron Man, he's like, I want to get out there and I want to face Darius one-on-one and, see who beats
what
who.
you wish for. Be careful what you wish for.
An exact quote from Lonnie Outlaw is like, he don't want that middle. That's exact quote he said last
I mean,
week.
Lonnie, the dude is he's an incredible athlete in himself. I mean, he's, what is he, 6'6", 6'7"? I mean,
yeah.
When I was coaching, I remember I had a squad in Arkansas in 08 or 09. I think it was 2009. My shortest receiver was 6'4". And when you have big receivers like that, it makes play call. I mean, it makes the offensive coordinator, which was myself at the time, it makes you seem really smart when all you have to do is throw the ball up because guys 6'4", 6'5", 6.
Right.
Lonnie Outlaw is that type of player. I mean, he is just – he's long, he's lengthy, lanky. There's not a lot of DBs that can cover 6'6". I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you just throw the ball up and it's a mismatch, So, but yeah, I mean, someone like Lonnie, I mean, I would say down in the red zone, he would probably do pretty good against Darius Prince. Out in the open field, I don't know. I mean, Darius is pretty good. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think for like me and Jim, we want to see, some guys that maybe aren't not exactly fish out of water, but like they're curious enough to get in and do this if they're not, say, a specialty player or they aren't designated to just be the one side. And, for myself, me being the newer fan in the room here, the strategy is what I look for. You're talking about, coaches having to play time management and who goes in, who goes out, making sure that who was on the bench to start the quarter, who wasn't,
Right.
You're tracking dead players, like that part of it, like in terms of the football chess match that sometimes is talked about with the outdoor game, it's like you turn that up to 11 a little bit with how you have to do that, because you not only are taking on the defensive strategy on the opposite side or vice versa, but then you have to also count and play the game between yourself and the other side on how your rosters are being balanced throughout the entire contest.
Absolutely. So we actually will be hiring. Well, we're going to have 2 substitution officials at every home venue, one for the home team, one for the visiting team. But most teams, if they're smart, they're going to have a coach that's dedicated to monitoring their roster to make sure they know who's dead and who's not dead. When I say dead, it sounds bad when people that aren't familiar with our game, the players
turn it on right now. Some context might be needed a few seconds
dead
back.
for the quarter. Oh, wait, he came back. He's still alive. He's not dead, like not heartbeat dead. But I mean, when I say a player's dead, that means he's ineligible for the rest of the quarter. So for all those people that get offended by that. So, so there'll be a substitution official hired by the league, not by the team.
Okay.
That's going to be monitoring the substitutions. But it is up to the team to be able to monitor that. So basically, each team is going to be designating 5 specialists, 2 defensive specialists, 2 offensive specialists, and their kicker, right? So on all series, offense, defense, and special teams, you're going to have 6 two-way players and 2 specialists, right? Offensive specialists can only play offense and special teams. Defensive specialists can only play defense and special teams. For example, Team A, San Antonio goes down. They're playing Orlando this week. They go down and they score a touchdown, and their kicker comes in for one of their offensive specialists, and either a defensive specialist comes in to hold, or maybe the other offensive specialist comes in. Either he's a holder, maybe he's a snapper, whatever. So you're always going to have those 2 specialists in. So, but the other, the 21-man roster, 16 guys are considered two-way players or Ironman players. So teams are going to have to monitor, okay, am I dressing an extra fullback linebacker? Am I addressing an extra O-line, D-line, an extra receiver, DB? There's value in guys that can play multiple positions. If you're a player, okay, I'm going to throw Darius Prince out there again.
Sure.
If you're a Darius Prince and you're terrible on special teams and you're terrible on defense, well, you better be very, very good at receiver. Now, I'm using him as an example because obviously he's very, very good at receiver. Regardless of what he does everywhere else, he's got value on offense. But now let's say you're a player, let's say you're maybe the third best receiver on the team, and maybe you're the third best DB, and maybe you're a pretty good special. Well, there's a value in that guy because you're not very, very good at any one thing, but you're really, really good at everything that you do. So it's a different way of recruiting players, and there's value in versatility with your ability to do multiple positions.
Jim, I kind of want to get your point on this here and then hear from the commissioner on this, because I'll tell you, out of all the spots on at least in terms of both sides of the main portions of the ball, I'm not talking special teams here, no offense, but offensive and defensive, I think the one I want to look for hybrid player that's not a specialist that intrigues me most is who fits best at the receiver MAC linebacker position, or those, for example, the like fullback Jack linebacker ones,
All right,
those
Zach,
are ones to me that
we
intrigue.
can't go any further without me correcting you. I apologize. So
That's fine.
The MAC linebacker is the blitzing linebacker, right? So that's your fullback MAC, right?
Correct.
So you'll have a receiver that plays the Jack linebacker, which is the weak linebacker, the linebacker that can't blitz, that can play sideline to sideline. So sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to make sure I correct you. I don't want you to go on air and hey, he's the MAC linebacker, and you're talking about Lonnie Outlaw playing receiver Jack linebacker, right? So
that's fine by me.
But yeah,
Zach, we have a saying on our show, man.
I understand that.
Don't be a jack out of the box, man.
I understand that.
Jack in the box, yeah.
That's good.
So speaking of rules, just so people are aware, the rules of our game are not changing at all. The playing rules, the overtime rules, they're not going to change at all. The only one change that we made was the substitution. So when people come to our games that love our games in the past, they're going to see the same game, and then they're going to start to understand the substitution, and that's going to take a little bit of time, right? So we're fortunate with all 6 head coaches in our league have experience either playing the game or coaching the game when it was Ironman football, which is an interesting situation to be in. I don't know that any single coach has an advantage over the other. I mean, a lot of teams are going to look at San Antonio and thinking, oh, expansion team, they're going to get beat up, whatever. Fred Shaw was a pretty darn good football player back in Ironman days. I don't know if any other coaches realize that, but he was very, very good. So he understands the game. So, and I'm actually going to go to that San Antonio-Orlando game. So I'm excited about that. Now, speaking of Orlando, what's interesting about Orlando, my rookie season was 1992. I came down to Florida, tried out for the Predators, made the team, never saw the field, but I was at least on the team, right? So Herky Walls was the offensive specialist in 1992. He's a dear friend of mine. He's my pastor. He's a great person. His son is actually on the Orlando Predators, Caleb Wall. And I don't know if he's playing this weekend or not, but it's kind of, well, number one, it makes me feel old that, a former teammate's son is on the team.
Right.
But I'm excited because we're starting to see the next generation of these players starting to play this game. So, I'm anxious to see how Caleb Walls does, and I hope. Part of me feels like I don't want him to watch this podcast because I don't want to put any additional pressure on him. But he's a great kid. He's about 4 inches taller than his father. So we were talking about that yesterday. He's like 6'1". I'm like, he's a nice sized kid, but I'm anxious to see him play this weekend as well.
Wow, that's gonna be weird. I mean, helpful at least for adapting and adjusting the game.
It's in his blood, so hopefully as well, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And actually the head coach of Orlando used to play for me. So now that doesn't necessarily translate into good coaching. He's a great dude. And I, obviously I hope he does well just because he's a personal friend of mine. But as commissioner, I hope every team does well in our league. You know, I always root for the home team, which is, you know, I'm not rooting against Orlando. You know what? I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
You're gonna get coaches called. You're like, what do you mean you're not rooting for us?
I've got multiple former players as coaches of Orlando. So if they don't go undefeated and win the championship, what does that make me?
Oh yeah, right. Well, and Higgins, I mean, former Iron Man of the Year as well. So like, it just fits the bill.
Well, you got EJ Burt played his rookie season for me in 2002. EJ Burt is probably still the all-time leading sack man in the history of professional football. He had 27 and a half sacks in one season playing AF2 football in North Carolina at the Cape Fear Wildcats. That was 2002. And what an incredible athlete he was. And their DB coach is Kenton Rickerson, who was my middle DS back then. And this guy was just a savage hitter. He's actually a state trooper down here in Florida in Daytona. He hasn't pulled me over yet, so that's a good thing. But you know, I mean, I want to see those guys do well because they're my former players. But you know, but I also want to see San Antonio do really well because they're an expansion team, and I'm super excited about them. I think they're going to probably be better than what people think, but I don't know what to expect because I'm not really familiar with their roster. I'm not really familiar too much with Orlando's roster either.
Well, I know for sure with us, that's when it comes to San Antonio, we are both excited and curious. And actually, I think Jim is the perfect time for us to segue yourself. Just kind of talk at least expectations for the year, getting into that because I mean the big wild card, you know, besides Iron Man, the Gunslingers joined in the season to help reround the league back out to 6 teams for this year, you know, going back, but obviously future plans and things like that, we are looking into this, but for the now, you know, we have at least a little movement out West and exciting future out in, you know, Western Texas.
Absolutely. So no, we're excited about it. We're talking to a number of different potential expansion teams. I think the primary focus is, number one, make sure that the current teams in our league are solid ownership groups. You know, obviously when you have some historically great franchises like Jacksonville Sharks, Albany Empire, Orlando Predators, you can build a league around those teams. Carolina is, the Carolina Cobras were an old AFL team located in Raleigh. Now they're located in Greensboro, and they are gaining some traction up there in North Carolina. Greensboro is just a fantastic city. I've got a lot of relatives up there. I love Greensboro.
Oh yeah.
Columbus. I mean, what can you say about Columbus? Columbus is one of those franchises that just is like, they're just never bad. They're always good. They're kind of in one way, they're kind of a prototypical type of franchise. They're a small market team in the big scheme of things, but they just do a fantastic job with everything they do. They make the most out of their market, and San Antonio is a great market itself. And I love the ownership group. A lot of enthusiasm. I went out there for their announcement of their team, and it was first class all the way. So I'm excited about them. With that said, you know, one of my primary goals for our league is to really, we want to solidify the East Coast, and we want to start to, how do I want to say this? The Central Time Zone is one that we want to target.
Okay.
We're not necessarily trying to go out West now, right? You know, arena football versus the other style of football has always been big on the East Coast. You've had a few teams out West here and there that have done well with this game, but we are an East Coast dominated league. So we would like to build this league around the teams that we have right now and just see where it goes. But it starts with the ownership. And we've got 6 very, 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 very good ownership groups that we feel really good about it. We're not going to be canceling games this year, God willing. So,
yes, hopefully we will. It doesn't look like we're going to be seeing the same thing we had to do with the the quick flip around for week 1 that unfortunately you guys had to have last year.
Well, this year we're 100% capacity all throughout the league, so
Yeah.
we're not in restrictions like we were all last season. Like in
I'm
Albany, they went
excited
from
about flying on a plane without wearing a mask on Friday. That should be nice.
Oh, yeah, same for me.
That's
Funny.
true.
Well, over the weekend for me, funny enough too. So, yeah.
But no, it's exciting. People ask me a lot about like this outdoor spring league that's happening, and I'm like, I think any football leagues out there are good for players, right? Good, continue to play, but I just love our brand. Our owners love this style of football, and I just think that we're poised to make a resurgence and bring back the excitement of the mid to late 90s of how it was just running rampant. Arena football was running rampant back in the 90s, and I think we can bring that back, and I think the fans are going to fall in love with it. And we listen to our fans, and a lot of them are very opinionated, good and bad, and but we hear what they say, and our goal is always about entertaining our fans and giving them more value for their money. So I just believe in this style of football, and I think people want to see high scoring, the ball in the air, passing football, and the Ironman is just adds another wrinkle to it that I think fans are just going to fall in love with. It's going to take them a few weeks to get used to it, and that's okay. Maybe it's uncomfortable to some, but I will tell you this: the fans that saw the game back in the day when it was Ironman are so excited. I mean, old school arena football players have been reaching out to me like crazy. Like, I can't believe you guys are coming back to Ironman. And that's what I grew up on. And I'm just super excited about it. I think it's the best thing we could have done.
Well, to me, that's got to be awesome. I'll tell you one thing, and at least on the fan side, me and Jim both know plenty that, Jim, of course, being back from at least, the glory days of like the high AFL on broadcast TV type of era. Myself, I talk to folks that, they've seen it through the 90s and all that. And it's just like, I look back at some of the old stats of how that league grew, how the interest grew, and how now it's just like trying to see who can take a foothold and get the sport back to where it's in a prominent stance with the public. And I'm thinking, like you guys, I like your style. So like, that's why I went this direction, why I like the NAL, because it reminds me of what I enjoyed about arena football, and looking back on it and seeing what made it good, and what is making it coming back to being that.
I agree with you 100%. In addition to the substitution rules or Ironman rules, I mean, we did something else that's, I wouldn't call, I don't think it's a big deal, but, we no longer have any kind of salary restrictions.
Right.
We have no salary cap. We have been the highest paid indoor / arena football league, at least on paper. But, when the owners and I met and we talked about salaries, and we're talking about, why even restrict it? Now the crazy thing is salaries haven't got out of hand in our league, because I've always told the owners and the teams, you want to run your team like any other business,
Sure.
and as we grow, the players will be able to grow with us. And we want our players to be invested in their teams. Like, of course, all the players want to get to the highest level of the NFL, and there's no denying that. And we encourage that. But while they're here, we want them to do everything they can to promote themselves, to promote the team. And, teams are able to set their own budgets and their own pay scales. So we don't have any restrictions like some of the other leagues. And, it's exciting. I feel like we have the best, we definitely have the best quarterbacks in all of indoor football as far as passing the ball. Maybe not, we might not have the best read option quarterbacks, but we definitely have the best passing quarterbacks.
Oh yeah.
And players that have come from other leagues into our league, I think they're blown away with how good our guys are. So I'm just excited about it. We're the premier arena league in the world at this point in time. So let's see where it goes.
Should be a fun time there. I mean, that's the thing. And Jim, I know you, I'm curious to see what Summits are the same way, but like,
Mhm.
just, now getting myself adjusted to the Ironman announcement, now seeing how we've gotten the off season to go so well, some of the new pieces of it, and just what we can look forward to now with the year fully in place. Again, got to stress last year with just being 10 games and having to just, with some restrictions with all the stadiums, it'll be so nice to see some places, especially like the likes of like Albany and some of the more other East Coast spots getting full capacity, more fans come back in. Like, Jim, I know you are the same way as me with that.
Well, it's going to be about 8,000 in Jacksonville from last time we checked. Albany's ticket sales are going good. Columbus's ticket sales are doing good. So the excitement is there for these cities. And like Chris and like myself, I remember back in the early 2000s where you go down to the jungle in Orlando, that's 20,000 plus. Like that place is packed. I want arena football to get back to that. The problem is we got to sell the product to the people out there. Say arena is not dead because I see it everywhere on social media. Arena football is dead. AFL is dead. No, it's not dead. The National Arena League is arena football without the arena AFL tagline. So it's our job we're carrying the torch now, and it's our job as fans and it's our job as a league to say, hey, we're here. This is our game. We're basically the AFL, but we're now just the National Arena League, and you can see that in the teams in the league with ticket sales. So the teams are doing well, and I'm excited. I want arena football to be back like it was in 2000s because there wasn't no USFL, there wasn't no XFL, there was Arena Football League. That was your spring football. Yeah, you had some questionable owners back then, and kind of play football inside houses, John Elway and Bon Jovi, but
I'm not going there. I'm not going.
I just
see. I can go there.
Put that response out of there.
but the national, for the people who are listening to our podcast for the first time, this is arena football. Right. Ironman is arena football, and we don't have the AFL tag. Yeah, the fields are still around. You can look at other leagues; or fields are still everywhere. But we are a National Arena League. Arena is key for the love of arena. That's why I want to do this podcast, and that's one thing I promote. I love this game, and I'm so mad that it doesn't get the respect that it's due, especially in the other leagues where they get opportunities to get drafted, and they're like, "Oh, you play in that league, you're not going to do well." Like Kurt Warner, one of the greatest ever quarterbacks of all time in the arena game, gets asked all time in his past. They always avoid the barnstormer era, which irritates the heck out of me. It's like that's where he made his name. Arena is that type of game. That's the sport that I love, and that's the sport that I hope we can get it back to. And I'm happy that Jacksonville's a part of it, so I can at least enjoy the game.
And to piggyback on what Jim just said, I live outside. I live in the Orlando area, not in Orlando, but nearby, and everybody knows who the Orlando Predators are. But there's so many people that don't realize that they are still playing. So it's like every time I go out, I have to say, they're still playing. They're in the National Arena League. They're playing it. Where are they playing it? They're playing at the Amway Arena. And they're like, oh, really? That's awesome. So everybody just, has to continue to get the word out there, because when the Arena Football League went through their bankruptcy, for a lot of people, it just died. Yes. And they don't realize that it's still back. So for us, it was very, very important to make sure that we had some of those staple teams: Jacksonville Sharks, Orlando Predators, the Albany Empire. Now, Albany, to their credit, they could have been the Albany Empire, or they could have been the Albany Firebirds.
That's right.
We've got both names. So I personally was leaning towards the Albany Firebirds just because that's what I grew up on. But the Albany Empire's recent past was very, very successful. They came off a championship, and then Coach Manas up there in Albany did a fantastic job last year. The championship game up there was just unbelievable. I don't want to get into it because, the first half was just like a crazy, crazy first half. I mean, I think Columbus scored maybe 6 or 7 touchdowns on a total of about 8 plays.
Right.
Too bad halftime happened for them. But point being is, the Albany Empire is a name that the people in upstate New York have embraced. So we're good with that. Whether you want to call them the Albany Empire or the Albany Firebirds, we were good either way. But people relate to the Empire. And Coach Manas has done a really good job of keeping a good core of players up there. Again, not that, toot his horn anymore, but Darius Prince, I think I'm putting pressure on him. So if he doesn't perform, then obviously the pressure is going to get to him. But they signed, a very, very good quarterback in Mike Faithful, the kid that was in Jacksonville last year that got hurt early on. I think he went to UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this kid's a special football player. So they've got a lot of tools up there. I think they open up against the Carolina Cobras. I mean, I'm excited about this weekend just because we have some interesting matchups. Jacksonville going to Columbus. Columbus just always seems to – it doesn't matter if Columbus wins or loses in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Their history tells you that they're always going to be relevant. And, I mean, if you're a bet man, they're going to probably be in the championship game this year.
Jason Gibson puts them together well. That's the thing.
I'll give Gibson credit. Gibson's not quite as old as me, but I actually am old enough to have played against Jason Gibson back in the old days. When he was with the Greensboro Prowlers, they sucked, by the way, but he was really good. I have to say that just because that's the only thing I got over him, right? But he does a great job. He's in the quote unquote small market. So, but he uses that to advantage. Yes, he's in the small market, but he's right smack dab in the middle of SEC country. So he's got Auburn 15 minutes down the road. I mean, there's so many great athletes in Western Georgia, Eastern Alabama. He's not hurting for recruiting, and he does a great job of recruiting young players. So, and he does a good job of recruiting players that nobody really knows about. So I'll be curious to see how they do, especially week 1 against Jacksonville. I just think that throwing the Ironman curve into everything, it's going to take a few weeks for the coaches to kind of get back to what they used to do. Now, Sia Burley, he played back in the Ironman days, but he was an offensive specialist. Right. I don't know if many people remember Sia Burley. He played at UCF, played for the Orlando Predators and the Arizona Rattlers. He was one of the smoothest route runners that you would have ever seen. I mean, it's hard to describe the way he played because at times it looked like wasn't even running, but then next thing you know, he had 10, 12, 13 catches and 5 touchdowns. He was just one of those guys that was just really, really good.
Sneaks up on you. That's what it sounds like,
Yeah, no, he does. I mean, he was fast, but he wasn't world-class speed. He was quick, but he wasn't world-class quickness. He was just had no weaknesses in his game. And I used to enjoy watching Sia Burley play football, back when he was playing. But, we've got some interesting matchups week 1, Jacksonville at Columbus, Carolina at Albany, and then, of course, Orlando at San Antonio, which is the game I'll be at. So I'm excited about all of them.
Should be good. Before we let you go, Commish, this has me curious too. What's the week before kickoff kind of like for you, and at least the other staff over there for you guys, like Steve and company over the NAL offices? I mean,
it is, for people that are in, let's say, Broadway terms, right? It's the craziness behind the scenes before the curtain drops. It is just all the little things that especially San Antonio, first year team playing in a new league, different arena, just making sure that they have, their goalpost up, we had discussion today. The arena's like, well, it should be at this height. And I'm like, no, it's 15 feet high. The arena thinks it's 10. It's just thinking about all those last minute details. And I mean, something's going to go wrong in San Antonio and possibly Columbus and all, but there's going to be things that go wrong, and that's okay. It's a matter of, you don't want them to go wrong multiple weeks in a row. So, I'm not expecting to go out San Antonio and everything to be perfect, but I'm expecting, hey, if there's mistakes made, let's correct them and let's move on. Fortunately for San Antonio and for us, they've played a season in the past, so they know how to put on a game. But they are stepping up big time in competition and expectations. You know, they're dealing with some last minute issues of some things. I'm not going to go on record of saying what's happening, but there's some things that didn't come in that are supposed to come in. So they're dealing with some last minute issues like we've got to get X, Y, and Z together. But they've been really cool under pressure, and I know that they're going to do a great job. There's going to be some mistakes that are made, but at the end of the day, the fans need to be entertained, and they're going to put on a great show and put on a great game, win, lose, or there's not going to be any draws because we got overtime.
Right.
Win or lose, the fans are going to be entertained, and that's the most important part. Is we want to entertain the fans and grow this thing. In this case, in San Antonio. So I know that there's the craziness behind the scenes, but yeah, it's just sending out emails, making phone calls and checklists, and hey, do you have your helmets? You know, everything needs to, you know, are the footballs in? Just little things that week one growing pains. You know, are the change? You have ball boys, you have the footballs, you have the uniform. I mean,
dang,
anything you could think about, you just want to make sure that it's done. But it's exciting too.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. I could understand, you know, I mean, you're kind of, you know, you just want to make sure it's the best possible product on the field when you guys hit, which, I mean, that we expected anyway, knowing you guys putting it up. So, you know, look forward to seeing.
So here's $1 million question for you guys in preseason, right?
Yeah.
Well, week one, we have something happening this year that has not happened in the 17, 18, 19, in the 4 or 5 years of our league, 6, but we didn't play in 2020. We are going to have, at the end of 2022, we are going to have the first ever NAL Ironman of the year. So,
yes,
you know, in the past, we had our offensive player of the week, defensive player of the week, special teams player. But now, I mean, obviously with our game, Ironman is the premier award, right? It's the premier position. It's the position that people love. So we'll give it a couple weeks, but start thinking about watch a few of these games, and you got to start thinking about who is the lead horse for Ironman of the year. So that should be the interesting question, because that is going to be that's where the stars are made in our league. You're going to have your offensive specialists, your quarterbacks are going to put up their numbers, the receivers are going to put up big numbers, but who's going to be that Ironman of the year?
Right. And I got a few prospects, but I'm going to hold off just because, like you're saying, I definitely want to.
It's too early to tell.
What's that? Oh,
it's too early to tell.
Well, you already have your favorite commission. You already have Darius Prince.
I was going to say.
Darius Prince, I don't think he's going to be Ironman of the year, because I think that he's going to be, in my opinion, he's going to be an offensive specialist. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, so he's probably out of the running. I mean, now I don't know what's in his head and what's in the coach's head up there, but I mean, Darius is a special player. He's a great kid. You know, he's a great personality. There's some guys out there that have been in our league, Devin Wilson. I mean, there's some guys out there that fit the bill for Ironman, you know, and it doesn't have to be necessarily receiver DB, you know, maybe look towards that D lineman that puts up big numbers, but can turn around and play offensive lineman, or a fullback linebacker, you know, Outlaw. I don't know if Outlaw is going to be a specialist or a two-way player, but Outlaw with his length, if he's receiver jack, I mean, you're not going to throw over the kid. I mean, he's like 6 forever. I mean, the dude is a lanky dude.
You're gonna bear claw that thing out of the air. I completely get that.
I was about to say that.
For the next couple of weeks, so we're going to start seeing some guys playing both offense and defense. You know, a lot of guys that are going to get a lot of notoriety are going to be the receiver jack linebackers, right? But the receiver DBs, you know, those guys have got it. Those guys are going to be the ones they're putting in the work. You know, they got to turn around and try to cover guys. If you're a natural receiver trying to turn around and play defense, I actually think it's a little bit easier for the defensive back to turn around and play offense, because defensive backs, just generally speaking, defensive backs, in my opinion, and I'm a receiver, defensive backs are really unbelievable athletes because they backpedal, their hips are great.
Mm-hmm.
The joke has always been from a receiver standpoint, guys play DB because they can't catch, right? But the great DBs are the ones that also have great hands. So those DBs that could turn around and play receiver and catch the ball, those guys, I mean, those guys have a lot of value, in the game. But no matter what you say about receivers, DBs, the offensive specialists, defensive specialists, the game's still going to be won up front in the trenches.
Yes.
You have to protect your quarterback and you have to turn around and rush the quarterback. So when I was coaching, I always built my teams starting at the line. So that's where I'm going to be looking to see where the real value is. Unfortunately for the linemen, especially offense, they don't have a lot of stats to go by, right? How many sacks did you give up? I mean, their biggest stats are holding, right? But I'll be looking for those big guys too to see how versatile they are, and can they pass rush, or can these pass rushers turn around and block a little bit? So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I know you got a couple coaches chomping at the bit. Maybe one over there in Columbus is chomping at the bit because he played the game back when it was Iron Man,
right?
And I'm sure he's got some things up his sleeve. Cy Burley, of course, another guy, old school, but I'm anxious to see some of these games this weekend. I'm super excited about Iron Man, the substitution rules, and obviously excited about 2022, and super excited about you guys being on board. It's going to be great. I can't wait to see some of your episodes and seeing who you bring on and seeing how this thing grows for you guys.
I know we've admitted it's nice to stay official in front of our show. And it's a pretty special thing. We thank you for.
I love it. I mean, once some of the guys kind of, I'm not the most proficient at social media and the stuff that you guys do. And when they started, showing stuff, I'm like, man, this is really cool stuff. I'm like, let's see where this goes. So I'm so excited for you guys being on board, and Zach, for you, I'm excited to see how your year goes being the virgin Iron Man guy. You know what I'm talking about. So
I know what you're talking about. I tell him, I tell Jim here, I'm the guy from Indianapolis. I got to get to the East Coast and get to one of these darn NAL games.
Listen, Zach, Indianapolis is a great arena city, so we got to get a team in Indianapolis. That should be your goal, right?
I got one for you.
One, get a team in Indianapolis, and two, let's get you guys to the championship weekend and have a special podcast before the championship game.
Oh man.
Oh yes.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
That happen live from the 2022 NAL championship. Now, granted, if you're looking at the history of our league, it would tell you that it's probably going to be in Jacksonville because every other year they're hosting the game.
He was telling me, just been telling me that. He's like, it's
not a far drive.
But
only a 10-mile drive from me.
Honestly, I couldn't tell you who's going to host it. I mean, it's too early to tell, but man, wouldn't it be great to have you guys down doing a live podcast during the maybe media day or whatever day, and just really rocking it and having a good time, getting players from both championship teams on your show. That'd be awesome. We got to make that happen.
We're chomping at the bit. We keep ourselves posted. We're going to do this thing. So
exactly. I'll tell you that there's probably not a very good chance that the game will be in Indianapolis. So
hey.
at least there's a 1 in 6 chance of it being in Jacksonville.
No neutral
Most
site.
likely you'll be traveling somewhere.
I'll figure it out.
Right.
I'm all for getting the game. We'll go to the game. So.
And Jim, hey, you've got a 33% chance that you don't have to fly. Well, actually, you got a 50% chance that you don't have to fly anywhere because you figure Jacksonville, Orlando, Columbus, you can drive to all three.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. San Antonio and Albany are the only two I think I have to take a flight out.
Yeah, you could probably drive to Greensboro. You're close enough. It's probably more of a pain to fly up there than it would be to drive up there.
Well, you have to go through Atlanta no matter what. So coming out of Jacksonville, you got to fly into Atlanta somehow.
I always drive to Columbus because it's too much of a pain to fly, and it's a 5.5, 6 hour drive. So I like going to Columbus. So every time I go, I find something new to do. So Columbus is a cool city. Downtown's a really cool city. If you ever get a chance to go to Columbus, I recommend you going. They got a really cool whitewater rafting experience down there that we did with my son last year. So that's fun.
Well, I know an owner chomping at the bit, at least to get one of us over there.
Yeah, no, we've already mentioned him on the show last week. I don't want to mention him again this week. Cruises, man.
Oh no.
So, I did it again. I'm sorry, Zach.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. Jim, anything you have for the commissioner before we go out?
No, honestly, I'm just want to say thank you, sir, for letting us have the opportunity to be the official podcast of the National Marine League. And I just want to say to us and our listeners and to our new listeners and viewers, hello, YouTubers. I forgot to do that at the beginning. It's going to be a privilege working side by side with you guys, and I can finally tell our people, we've been teasing the announcement. They're like, what's going on? What's going on? It's like, really can't? Is it a player? Is it this? I'm like, no, you're nowhere near what the situation is. But I want to say thank you, appreciate it. And I just want to say that, yeah, let's get ready for August 13th, birthday weekend, of course. August 13th, August 12th, my birthday. So it's my birthday weekend. So let's go celebrate at a championship game. So I'm looking forward to that.
No, super excited for you guys. So happy to have you guys on board as our official podcast for the NAL. So it should be a great year. It will be a great year. And looking forward to seeing some of your future podcasts.
Absolutely. Commissioner Siegfried has joined us here on the show. Commissioner, thank you for taking your time. Best of luck to you, the rest of the owners, the office for this first week back for a full year, for first time in, a little while. But it's going to be a great season, new rules, much more exciting play ahead. Looking forward to everything.
Let's do it. NAL, man. We're going to rock it this year. Ironman football. We are the home of Ironman football. No doubt.
Covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Kyleman and Jim Bernier.